people aren't paying that close, they're not paying that close attention to your post. So if you post a video of yourself and you say, here's our new listing at XYZ Street, you know, all people are gonna remember is that you were at a listing or you had a listing. Like, they're not gonna realize it wasn't yours. And so the more that people can see that you're listing houses and they're selling and now you're getting more and it's 2 days on market or whatever, I mean, I don't know, I feel like that helps too. So even if it's not your listing, I mean, I think that you can find someone that will let you market their listing.
Your company or not.
Yeah.
You know, I've called friends at other companies. If they have a hot new listing and I noticed,
Yeah.
you know, if a good friend of mine, Angie Cole, for whatever reason, hasn't planned an open house at her hot new listing, I'm like, Angie, can one of my agents come do an open house? And she's like, sure, come on out.
Yeah, it's a great idea, absolutely, absolutely. I'm gonna skip over Facebook because I feel like we talked a lot about that, but we're gonna circle back during Q&A, I'm sure.
Sure.
So quickly, tell me, are there any like favorite apps that you guys use, technology platforms, CRMs, or anything like that that you want to share with everyone?
So I'm very pen and paper. I have a notebook with me at all times that has client names and phone numbers. I put notes on them. It's just easier for me because I don't have my laptop. You know, if I'm driving, don't tell anybody I do that and drive. For apps, I really like BombBomb. I just recently started using that, and I absolutely love it. It is my favorite thing. You can send videos really quick, and yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's BombBomb?
BombBomb. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Gotcha. An app that I use to keep me on point, and especially to make sure that I don't miss a step in transaction, it's not a real estate specific app, but it's called Asana, A-S-A-N-A. It's a great project management software. What I do is it's essentially just a checklist between my assistant and I. And we have a series of templates. So, okay, here's a new buyer template, here's a buyer under contract template, here's a buyer post-closing template. I have on there a checklist of every single step that needs to happen in the transaction between my assistant and I, and they're in the order that they happen. It keeps me sharp day to day to make sure that something doesn't fall through the cracks. I also have a template for a new lead, to everything I'm going to do to follow up with that lead, a new listing template, and a listing under contract template. And again, it's just a series of checklists that for every transaction, I automatically create a new project with and apply the appropriate template, and it makes sure that every single thing that needs to happen within that transaction, and including the post-transaction follow-up, which we as realtors are so bad about following up at the closing. And I tell you, that is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make as an agent is stop talking to people after the closing. Because what are they going to be doing when they're setting up their new house? They're going to have a housewarming party in the 6 weeks. You should be calling them, hey, can I come sponsor your housewarming party? I'll show up with a couple of bottles of wine, a veggie tray, a wine and cheese tray, and a bunch of swag.
Yes.
You should do that with every client every time. It's easy. And you're staying visible to your client after the sale. And what are they going to be doing? They're going to be inviting all their friends over to see their fancy new house. Why would you not want to try to leverage that and get some increased visibility with that? But Asana is a great app. If anyone wants to see a copy of my checklist, shoot me an email, jordan@nestrealty.com. I'm happy to share my checklist with you. There's a lot of different apps out there that are checklists, but I like this one because it's both web-based and there's a mobile version. And I can check at any time, I can see, okay, has the closing been scheduled for 123 Main Street? Well, let me look at my checklist, it's right there. And whether I've done it or my assistant's done it, we can see it. So it's a really great, helpful app.
Ooh, I'll be emailing you for that.
Awesome.
Yes, Angelique?
I mean, this might be lame, but I mean, I don't use a lot of apps. My favorite app is our HomeSpotter app. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been using that, but if you're not, you're really missing out. I can't tell you how many times a friend of mine will either text me or say, like, look at this house I just saw on Redfin or Zillow, and you're like, okay, let me actually look at it to see if it's actually on the market or what the actual price is before I respond. And you just boop, 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 HomeSpotter, and that's our app from our MLS. And you can, if you're logged in as an agent, you can see all the agent remarks, and you can see the commissions even, and just everything in there on the agent, like the agent view is in there if you're logged in as an agent. So if people call me, like just the other night, I was meeting with someone for a listing presentation, and he goes, do you have time? Can we go see this house that I was looking at? And I was like, sure. It was 7 o'clock at night. So I just went boop, boop, boop on showing time, and then boop, boop, boop on HomeSpotter, and we went over there, and I had all the information that I needed, agent remarks and public remarks right there on my phone, and I use the app every single day, so I just love it. If you're not using it, you really should.
Yeah.
And I know that they have training classes here on how to use HomeSpotter, so look at the calendar and just see, when you can get that training. That is such a great point, because that app goes under the radar a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I used to use Realtor.com for that, because it's relatively, up to date or whatever, but
HomeSpotter,
once we got on HomeSpotter, I was just like, wow.
There's a few apps I want to give you guys. I'm actually taking a social media technology class, and they suggested these apps the other day, so I just want to say them quickly. When to Post, that's an app, and it helps you post at really good times on social media. I don't know if it syncs with your social media page or what. Stitcher, Snapseed, and those are social media specific apps that will help you with your photography and whatever it is that you post. I'm just starting to use them, so I'm not very great at it yet, but I like them so far, so just that.
What was the last one? You said Stitcher and
Snapseed, and When to Post.
Snapseed, like the letters?
Snapseed, S-E-E-D, Snapseed. Yeah. And S-N-A-P-S-E-E-D. And then Stitcher and When to Post. Really good stuff for social media. Okay, so this is one of my favorite questions that I always like to ask everybody. And let's move through these a little quickly just so we can get to Q&A. But I really, really love this question, because so many times we don't want to share our things that we've done wrong. But talk to us about the biggest mistakes you've made in real estate. And we've all made mistakes before. But tell us a little bit about that, how you've learned from it.
I mean, for me, I've thought a lot about that, and I couldn't really think of anything to share except for that so since I started with real estate, I had quit as a trainer, and I let my nutrition get out of control again, and I had gone from, really way too strict and, way too regimented to now I'm just eating whatever, whenever, all the time again, like it was before, and I have gained about, maybe you may not realize it, but I've gained about 30 pounds, and I just don't feel good. I actually didn't work out from February till July of this year, and that's not like me, but I was just so busy, and I just couldn't fit it in. So I really regret that. I really regret letting myself get out of some of the really healthy habits that I had generated or built up during that time. And I used to drink juice, and I used to drink protein shakes, and I used to, I don't know, just do things that always made me feel good, and I stopped doing that. So I recently, just this week, actually decided that I was ready to start making that stuff a priority again, and hopefully it'll stick this time. So.
And that's so easy to do. You've inspired me not to order my thing shrimp at lunch, so thank you.
Something that has been the most costly mistake that I've made in my career is to be over trusting of and I don't want to sound it because I've got an amazing sphere, but sometimes at the end of the day, the jobs get it signed. And I've had listings that I have had coming up 6 weeks down the road, and I don't need to get them to sign a listing agreement now. When the house is ready, they'll come to me. And someone out there, because especially in a market of such limited inventory, I've gotten that call, and honestly, I left about $1 million. One of them was a very big one, but I've left about $1 million in the last 18 months of commission dollars on the table. That's
a lot.
crap load of money. And it's a costly mistake. It's like putting a stack of money on the table and then setting that table on fire. But get it signed. If you get a new listing but it's not going active, leave the dates. Put in your listing agreement, say 180 days on market instead of a specific expiration date. Get it signed, because especially in a market of such limited inventory, and if they work in a big environment, like one of my clients, they were a physician at UNC Hospital, and lo and behold, their neighborhood was in a great convenient location at UNC Hospital, and I didn't get the listing agreement signed, and they said, hey, I'm sorry, Jordan, we actually don't need you. One of my coworkers is going to buy my house. I'm like, okay, that was a $650,000 listing. That would have been at 6% with me keeping 3.6. That's an $18,000 lesson. That's an ouch. So get it signed. Whether it's a buyer agency agreement, don't be too pushy with your buyer agency agreements, because I tell every client, I want you to get the chance to get to know me, and I want to get to know you because this is a trust relationship, and I don't want to work with every client out there. Some of them, I've had clients where I'm like, you're fired, sorry. You're going to wreck my life over the next 8 weeks while we're working together. But honestly, and working with difficult clients, so here's a bit about that. The worst part about having a difficult client who's going to monopolize your time is not the frustration you're going to feel. The worst part about working with a difficult client who needs to be fired is that the rest of your book of business is going to suffer as a result of you letting yourself be monopolized by them. So it's like, you know what, you don't deserve my best, so I'm not going to work with you. I'm going to say no to this commission, and I'm going to go focus on the people who really deserve my best. And I'm not going to let them suffer because you're a diva. So go find another agent. I'm not the one for you. It's not a good fit. Yes?
Would you refer him out?
I do, every time. I look at, so I have about 10 agents who work for me at Nest Realty, and I look and say, okay, who needs a good learning opportunity?
Who do I like the least? Oh, yes. That's great advice because don't work with people you don't like. That is such a
Ruins your life.
time suck. It's draining. Yeah, absolutely. Sam?
So I have a couple, I was just making notes over here. Number one, I would say underestimating people. Some of my buyers have been some of the most unlikely people, and they've had some of the best budgets.
Yeah.
Never underestimate somebody, because they are the people who know the people who are going to be buying your biggest sales. So always just keep that in mind with everybody. Not making time for myself was a really hard one for the first few months, especially. I always have my phone with me, but whenever I'm like out at dinner with family or something, I try to put it away and realize that's okay to have that me time. And it is for anybody, whether you're a new agent or a super busy agent too. And then my last one is waiting until something's perfect. So I don't know how many of y'all are new agents. I will sit around and I'll be like, oh, I need to make a buyer packet, and I'll not use it, not print it. I'll keep editing it until it's perfect. Spoiler alert, it's never perfect. Just go ahead and get it out, start booking those appointments, get those listing appointments and everything.
Oh, that's great advice. It's never perfect.
Never.
Absolutely. Yes,
Right.
thank you, Sam. And I'm going to ask this question, and then we'll turn it over to Q&A, and just give me like one or two things. So, what is your best advice to give agents to generate more leads quickly? And how can they just get right into action? So, just 1 or 2 points. We'll just go straight down the line.
Pick up your phone and make 5 phone calls in 15 minutes today.
Yep. What she said, create a daily routine that plays to your strengths but still pushes your limits at the same time. If it's easy and comfortable, it's not the right routine. You need to get comfortable being uncomfortable in this business. And do not view asking for a referral as a failure. It is not. If some people are still surprised that I do it, I'm like, that's the job. Be present in people's relationships. Add value to their lives, but on occasion ask for the referral, and don't be afraid to ask for it. So many agents are terrified to do that. It's like, well, and I'm like, why don't you want to ask for the business? Because I failed. I'm like, no, that's your job. Pick up the phone and ask for the business. Pick up the phone. Start out.
Yes.
One thing I was thinking would be like what Tiffany was describing earlier, like a pop by, like we learned pop buys, and come up with some cute little thing, and then just pick 20 people off your list and go see them actually at their house if you want to, or probably even better at their job, because then more people will see you. And just tell them you're thinking of them, and here's a little gift. It could just be a little pumpkin that you painted a little face on, or like whatever. It doesn't have to be anything big, but just something, or the sparklers, whatever time of year it is. But just like right now, you could just pick 20 people next week to try to connect with them. And I think same with phone calls, that would really drum up some business right away.
One tip I heard this morning when you said pumpkins, it reminded me a pumpkin carving kit. What a great opportunity right now to drop those off, and they're super cheap. So, yeah.
How cheap is cheap?
Well, in Amazon, honey. We're in the day of Amazon. You get a bunch of stuff for super cheap. So yeah. Let's turn it over for Q&A right now. Who has any questions for the panel? Yes, please.
I do.
What's your name?
My name is Goretti Arruda, and I'm with Grow Local Realty out of Holly Springs.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yes, I know Brian.
And I've been out a couple of years, which means 30, so I'm just getting back in. And
Can we have another microphone?
You can't hear me?
Yeah, of course.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Mine doesn't work, otherwise I would give you this one, but here you go. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Goretti Arruda, and I'm out of Grow Local Realty in Holly Springs. I've been out for a couple of years due to double knee surgery, so I'm getting back in. And of course, young people in here with their new ideas, that is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. I did not get a chance to work with an assistant while I was working there. I was doing it all myself, and there is no time for yourself, like you were saying. My question is, do you all have assistants?
I do. I think there's an appropriate time once an agent consistently hits a certain level of production where it's appropriate. You know, a lot of this business, some of the best practitioners are born in the fire, and this job is baptism by fire. It's how you get started. You know, so if I have a newer agent who, you know, sells 18 houses their first year, that's a great first year, but you don't need to go hire an assistant yet. You need to learn the hard way, and that's how you become, and that's how you're molded into a great practitioner, is by fighting it out and doing the hard things and becoming methodical and getting to the point where you don't have to think in your conversations or in your actions or in your plans, where it's kind of like a muscle memory in a way. You know, I think once an agent starts hitting, you know, 30, 35 transactions a year like clockwork, yeah, okay, at that point it makes sense to have an assistant. But until you get to that point, I think you do yourself a disservice just by trying to lighten your workload and not, you know, not doing it the hard way for a little while. It's my thought.
Yeah, I don't have an assistant. In my, so like, I had 33 transactions the first year and I'll have 40 this year. And I do it all myself, and so I laugh at people when they say like, oh, I don't, you know, and at Fumble Morrissey, I'll just say, we do it all on paper. I mean, we don't have like an electronic, you know, transaction thing, and we do now, but I mean, we do it all on paper, and so, anyway, I just laugh at people when they say that they can't do the paperwork, because it's like, yes, you can. Like, it's not that hard. If you have a system, and if you really are that horrible at it, then fine, but I think that you'll never learn unless you actually do it yourself, and I don't know that I really feel like I would want an assistant, to be honest. I had one guy that joined my firm, and he was like, oh, you know, I want to have everything systematized, and I want to have everything automated, and I don't want to have to, you know, interact with the client. I want everything to be, you know, automatic. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is the time of the meat of the whole thing where they need you, you know, and I want to make those phone calls, and I want to be the one that's managing this transaction. And so, but of course, if I get too busy, then I'll hire someone, but I just don't think that you need that. So.
I am still like right after my first year of real estate, so I definitely don't have an assistant, but my theory is very similar to hers on this. If you can't get yourself perfectly organized, then nobody else is going to be able to. So my plan at least is to not get an assistant until I can get myself very streamlined and just be able to pass that on to somebody else.
Excellent.
And a good tip if you get really busy is hire a transaction coordinator. They're on an as-needed basis, and they can make your life like glorious if you're just so busy, but not at the point to hire an assistant yet. Once you've walked yourself through, you know, doing it all yourself. If you just can't do it, transaction coordinators are like a godsend. So, did you have a question?
Yes.
Thank you, Brenda.
So it sounds like the three of you are speaking from full-time experience as an agent. I'm doing this part-time. I have an hour lunch. Most times I'm running errands. And after work, I am driving home. And so I have maybe 2 hours a day to do anything. And I'm also a landlord, so right now I'm renting out one of my properties. So trying to, and then if I have a client, I'm seeing them after work or on the weekend. So it's really hard. I'm trying to wrap my head around this idea of putting this much time into farming and networking when I have 3 hours a day, and my 3 hours is working with the clients that I do have. So I'm trying to understand and I would like to go full time, but I'm single. I know you're married. I don't know the two of you are.
I'm divorced.
So, okay, so I don't know. I mean, I just can't give up my annual income either, just, cold turkey. So I'm trying to figure out what strategies or I'm sure you said you have people that work for you. So what strategies have you offered them who want to go full time into real estate, but have that balance? You got to have income coming in to pay the bills too. What have you done?
Sure. With agents I hire to work for me at Nest, one conversation I have with every agent that I'm interviewing is I want to know, and I call this your runway. How long of a runway do you have? How far can you drive the plane before it has to get off the runway before it crashes. And that's me asking, okay, how long can you go financially before you start generating income? Because the entry into our industry is hard. It's really tough, and I get it. I get it 100%. Where I think you would get the most traction is, again, just looking at the people who know you, like you, trust you, and make some intentional effort to be present and to get referrals from them. And it'll be hard. Give up your evenings, give up your weekends, and that's hard, especially when you're working full time in another job. I get it. It's really tough. But to make the transition, you've got to get your business running to the point where it becomes more self-sustaining, so that you can get to a point where you could potentially think about going part-time on the full-time job and making that transition between part-time real estate and full-time elsewhere. But it's tough. But again, your relationships are always going to be your biggest source of business. So look at that, identify, you can't go out and handle a sphere if you're doing this part-time with 100 people. See if you can identify 20 people and kind of work those and see if you can get enough income going off of that to start having a conversation with yourself of, okay, maybe I can, start to slowly transition real estate into the front burner instead of the back. That'd be my advice.
And, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, well, while you're in the car, you could make a few phone calls from the car, right? So maybe have that planned out, or have their numbers pre-programmed into your phone. Those are the calls you're gonna make that day. And another idea that I had was, if he was talking about the client events, or, or the egg thing, like just doing stuff like that on the weekends to really get your name out there, and to just maximizing the time that you have when you do have it. It's hard. There's no good answer because it is really hard. I had a girl ask me if she thought that she could be she was a teacher and she wanted to do real estate in the summer. I was like, no, you can't do that. I just don't even know how you, I said no. I just don't know how you can, but at least you have some time every day that you can devote. And so I think someone like you especially needs to be as structured as Jordan, so that you have a plan and that you really follow it and you make sure that that important stuff gets done. And like he said, it's gonna be hard and you're gonna work a lot, but also have a plan for how much, like that point where it's the time to make the transition. And there's never a perfect time. Like I left my job, I was making $80,000 a year to work as a trainer, and I wasn't making much doing that, but I felt like it was the right thing for me to do to make it. And at some point you just have to take that leap, but I know that it's hard. So you just have to imagine all that extra time and how much more money you could be making if you weren't stuck at work all the time, and then just kind of make that leap when you can. But there's never a perfect time for that, so.
You are spot on, Angelina. You're essentially preparing for that leap now, right? And yes, so Sam, I wanted you to speak to when you were working full-time, because she was also 8 to 5. How did you balance the both?
So it was very difficult. I think the most important thing to do would be to identify your goals. So if you're saying that your goal is to, sell a handful of houses a year, maybe you can continue that for a while. But if your ultimate goal is to jump and go full-time real estate, then I would identify those goals. How many do you want to sell this year? How many do you need to sell this year in order to survive, pay your bills, and have some fun money? And then time block your time to kind of reflect that. So if I need to have 6 buyers and 10 listings in order to survive, what are you doing to make that happen? Make all of those hours that you do have count. Work on the weekends, work nights, basically work like you want to go full-time. And then stick to it. Just make sure that if you do time block those times out, you have to stick to it, because otherwise you're going to get swamped and then do what I did, where you're just kind of panicky and you're like, oh gosh, I have to quit my job in order to make all this work.
Great advice. And we've got time for a couple more questions. Yeah, Allison.
I've got one specifically to Jordan. I loved what you were saying about working vendors and providing value to your clients by providing those vendor contacts. And one area where I have struggled, and I'm dealing with some personal work at our house too, and just vendors not living up to my standards.
Sure.
So what's that conversation you're having with your vendors? And if it is an area where you've got like a weakness, what are you telling your clients? Like
Right.
if you're talking about a vendor and you're like, yeah, I'm not really sure
Sure.
that they are great.
Sure. It's a struggle with vendors. It's important to have several in each different area. And the biggest one that I always struggle with in terms of my client business is always my handyman, my guy who's gonna go through and handle my punch list when I have a home inspection report, 23 repairs on it. And it's about every 6 months before one of my vendors will burn me. And that's really hard because, I sing their praises to my clients. I'm like, oh, call so-and-so, they're great. They've done tons of work in my own personal home. And I always tell my clients that I'm not gonna refer someone to you who doesn't understand that my referral of them is a reflection on me and I expect excellence. So it's really hard when one of my vendors lets me down. My key to overcoming that is having, especially with the handyman, I have at least 2 different ones that I go to. That way I'm not reliant on that one relationship the whole time. But other than that, you have to not be afraid to have really tough conversations, with your contractors that you're referring, and make sure they understand, look, I'm gonna be good to you, but I need you to be good to me. And the way you're good to me is you tell my client you're gonna be there at 10, you're gonna be there at 10. Don't change your prices after you've quoted it, and really just managing the expectation of that relationship. But have more than one. I have 2 handymen I go to, I have 2 painters I go to, 2 different landscaping companies I go to, so on and so forth. But work hard and try to identify the people who are not just gonna be a resource for you, but, most of my vendors I'm somewhat friends with, because I get to know them over time. And fostering those relationships also helps foster accountability at the same time, so that's my best advice with that.
What were you doing, sorry, just
It's okay.
to hide a follow up.
Go for it.
When you were not at doing 75 a year, when it was smaller. So my business isn't tiny, but it's not 75 a year.
Sure.
And so sometimes I think I get taken for granted by the contractors. And there are very few where I feel wholeheartedly I would recommend them. They do what they say they're gonna do and they show up when they say they're going to.
Network with some of your colleagues, ask them who they think is good. Those of us who have people who do a lot of transactions, we're a little hesitant to give certain people's names out because they're that good and we want to lose them. We don't also, this sounds selfish, but we also don't want our go-to people spread so thin that they're not going to be there when we call on them. But ask around. Even if you're only out there doing 15 transactions a year, if I'm a home inspector, yeah, I want 15 more home inspections a year. Or what have you. Big or small, there's always the opportunity to grow a business. And as easy as it sounds, I have found Angie's List to be a pretty helpful tool in terms of evaluating people. Because if you're on Angie's List and you've got 3 reviews, and if you're on Angie's List and you got 178 reviews, that's a pretty strong track record. So that, as cliche and as easy as it sounds, it can actually be a pretty helpful tool. Especially when you are looking at a geographic area that's as widespread as the Triangle Market, which if you include the outer areas, stretches from Wake Forest to Zebulon to Hillsborough to Pittsburgh, and everywhere in between. So that can be a good tool as well.
Well, and one other thing I want to say is that goes back to the way that you perceive yourself too. They don't know how many transactions you're doing or who you're referring to who and when. Just with confidence, refer your clients to them, and they should be respecting you no matter how many times you refer them. And if they're not, then stop sending them referrals, period. I don't care if you send them 2 clients or 20 clients. That should never be an issue. So if it is, then obviously.
You got the wrong vendor.
Yeah, so, I don't know if we answered your questions or not, but.
Yeah, I guess what I worry about is sending somebody to my clients and then they are a poor reflection of me. So if somebody messes up, what are you saying to your clients? Are you calling to follow up?
I call my contractor.
Oh, yeah.
I call my contractor and say, James, it's Jordan, I'm about to give you hell, and I tell him. And there's been times when he's been out of the house at midnight saying he's sorry, and sometimes that's necessary. But you need to have a relationship with someone you can lean on. My recommendation is you need to find some different ones. Doesn't sound like you have a lot of confidence in who you're referring to.
And then I apologize profusely anytime something doesn't go the way that I said it would or that I wanted it to. But at the end of the day, that's not your fault. And if your client thinks that that's your fault, then that's something wrong with them. Because, when I refer people to someone and I say, oh, he's the best, he helps me every time, and then something goes wrong, and then I apologize profusely for that. I would hope that person would realize, okay, it's not her fault, and I also always say, this is who I recommend, but if you know someone else or you want to do some research, just recently, one of our new agents, her husband is a home inspector, so we've started referring everybody to him, but we just had 2 where they found their own inspector, and I was like, okay, that's fine. So, I don't know, I wouldn't take it so personal unless you're, I mean, I just can't imagine that your clients would be that upset if something went wrong based on one of your referrals,
Yeah.
you know?
Another good way to work around that is offer a solution.
Yeah.
And
well,
be like, you know, I'm so sorry, James is just stupid busy right now. He dropped the ball for sure. Here's this is why I say have more than one. Here's another
yeah,
person
here's
who's
what
also
we're gonna
really
do.
good.
Yeah.
That way you're adding value by offering a solution and just say, look, he's so busy right now. He's just overwhelmed, and I'm so sorry. And here's another answer for you.
Love that. Yep, solving the problem. All right, well, we do not unfortunately have time for any other questions. However, maybe our panel can hang out for a minute or
Yeah,
two
sure.
after and
Yeah.
answer any questions that you guys have. I just want to take a second and thank you all for coming out tonight, or tonight, I'm thinking of tonight. No, but I want to thank you guys for coming out today. I hope you got a lot from the panel, and thank you for being part of Locking In Entertainment. For your time today. We know you're very busy, so we really appreciate it. All right, guys, thank you. Have a good one.
That was fun, ladies.
Brittany, will you take a picture of us really quickly?